So everyone knows that property makes money, right? But a lot of people actually message saying, Jamie, how do you actually make money from property? What are the ways in that you can monetize? And I'm not talking about doing a refurbishment or getting it at a great price. I'm talking about once you actually have the property asset, how is it making you money over time? And I'm excited to share that this is the first video ever that we've partnered with somebody, Property Data, and they've agreed to sponsor this video, bringing the extra value to you. I'm going to be breaking down the software that Property Data is offering right now that links in with how we're actually making money, and this is going to help you reduce the time, increase your experience and delivery so you can maximize your profits whilst building your property portfolio. So let's get into the 3 ways of how we're maximizing profit in property, starting with number 1, which is of course rents. So it sounds pretty obvious, right? Of course, a buy-to-let portfolio is going to get rental in, but it is really important to understand why you're actually getting paid for this service. So landlords and property professionals get a bit of a knockout there, right? Oh my God, you're ruining people's chances of buying property, or you're taking away, and you know, there is an element of truth to that. If we're buying a property, somebody else can't. But actually, every single business and transaction of money is a value exchange. So you are providing a house and a home to somebody to maximize the profits that you're going to get. And there's a few things to count into this. Number 1 is actually doing a good job on the property, a refurbishment with this, and understanding the rental demand that's going to be paid towards that. The better the quality, the more likely you are going to get a great tenant. And it's not just how much they will pay for rent, by the way, it's the quality of tenant and how long they're going to stay there. If you make a rough looking property and you think, you're probably going to attract that type of tenant and they might be in there 8 to 12 months. Whereas if you make a real home for somebody that they can put their stamp on, we'll have tenants in since we bought them 7 years ago that are still there today because they make your house their home. So it's really important to do your analysis in that. And let's jump into Property Data right now, where it shows you the breakdown of the area, and it's going to really help you understand the rental returns you're likely to get and the yields. 3 things I'm looking at with Property Data, and you can see on here I've gone to an area, South Leeds. This is one of my hotspots where I'm buying and I'm finding for my APG clients. By the way, if you're interested in that, just put APG. If you've got money and you want a hands-free portfolio, we can have a chat. But this is where the power of Property Data really comes in, because I can see a few different things. So 3 key things. Number 1 is rents in the area. And as you can see here, it's really breaking down the key areas and what we're looking at. So I can see a 4 beds average is 948 in the area, a 2 bed 654, and a 3 bed is 823. Now this is really powerful data for me, because what I typically aim for in these areas is going to be 2 and 3 bed properties. Now if it really does depend, and you need to go further in, because obviously I've gone South Leeds and I go into the areas like Hare Hills, Middleton, all of that. But I'm going to look at the price discrepancy of purchase prices in a moment, if in relation to these rents, because you can see a huge jump between the 2 bed and the 3 bed by almost £200 a month, but the price increase actually isn't that dramatic. So it's giving me an overview, and the great thing here is it's all in one place. So if I hover over one of these dots and click there, I can see it's Anther Street in Beeston, £901. I can see the upper echelon here, Rotary View LS27, £1,200. And you know, Parkfield Grove, Beeston, 594, and I can see the details by actually going on the property if I want to go and see that. The next thing I'm jumping in, and this is so cool, this is in fact, I'm going to show you it last. Yields keep you tense there. Go into the yields, and again, you can see these yield prices here. Now, remember, yield is based on what you're purchasing at and the gross rental return. Now, the 1 beds get the best return there. So it's definitely going to be something I'm factoring in, because if a 1 bed is getting the best rental return, that's something to think about. So a lot of people go, well, why don't I typically go for 1 beds? Because rent isn't just what it's about. It's the rental increases and capital appreciation. And you see in a moment how capital appreciation is actually lower for 1 beds. So I typically like the 2 to 3 beds, and you can see they're averaging anything between 4.9 and 5.6% return. Now here's the really cool stuff that I think Property Data have absolutely nailed. I am a geek for a graphic, okay? Check this bad boy out. So if I go over to activity, what I can look at is the rental market there. So in this area, there is a 78% stock turnover. So just to give you an idea, anything above around the 40% mark is a really good stock turnover. What that means is that they are coming on the market and then getting rented like that. So you can see out the 188 properties that have gone on this, they have on average only taken 39 days to rent. That's not to get people interested, that's to get people in, get them validated, do the referencing and take the property off. That is just over a month. That is insanely fast. And there's 147 in this area that have rented out of the 188. And you can see here, this diagram here, I don't know what you'd call it, speedometer almost. And you can see it is right up there, and they measure it out of 60 and they've given it a 55 out of 60 in the red zone. And what this means is it is a landlord's market. What this means is there is huge demand. This is one of the highest demand areas for rental. And what does that indicate? It means that rents may rise over time, and it's a really good indication to maximize the rentals that you're going to get and the likely rental increases over time. Number 2 is rental increases. So much like property price increases, which we'll go through in a moment, the way that this works is through 2 modes. So number 1, you've got demand in the area, and you've got our good friend, inflation. So I know people talk about inflation in quite a negative context, I would say, because, you know, inflation is increasing the cost of our food, the cost of life, right? But actually, it also increases what people are willing to pay. So first of all, basic supply-demand economics. If there is more demand than there is supply, which is the current housing situation in the UK, and it is just going to get worse or better, depending on what side you are, what that means is there are more people bidding for your property. Then you've got inflation, the fact that the cost in general goes up, and so you will have rentals increasing over time. The reason this is so important is those rental increases are pretty much pure profit. If somebody, because of the demand, is willing to pay an extra £100, then that is pure profit. So again, let's go into Property Data right now, and I'm going to show you how I utilize this to select the best areas possible. So I covered this earlier, but really deep diving in, because you cannot geek out on this enough, because as I said, I think Property Data have absolutely nailed this, and this is worth the money alone. When you go on here and you look at the activity and the stock availability, you can see stock here. You can monitor it over time as well, by the way. And this is what I really recommend doing. So on the activity side of things, you can see the fact that it's a strong landlord market, which is a really good indication of that growth over time. But you can also look at the stock on here. So you can do it by agent, which is really good because you can see who's the key players in the industry that you might want to talk to. But you can also see the actual internal areas, the property types, the number of bedrooms, the things that are in demand. So semi-detached and terrace property in South Leeds, for example. Energy scores, a majority of them are D. But it's really good, and you can actually go in and find the E, F and G. Why is that a cool platform to have? Because you can target landlords that got the lower energy performance, which will be illegal in a few years, to actually rent them to tenants. Great opportunity to get below market value property, right? And you can actually monitor this over time. So I won't go on there right now, but what you can do is once you've saved your area, Property Data every single hour, every single minute is measuring and analyzing what's actually going on in that market, so you can track the general trend of the property rental market, whether it's going up or down, which is obviously a massive benefit for you to understand that analysis moving forward. The third, and in my opinion, the best way of making money in property is actually inflation again and the appreciation of property prices. Now, caveat to this, I would never buy a property that doesn't cash flow. Never is a pretty definite term. It's very unlikely that I will ever buy a property that isn't appreciating in value. The reason why, by the way, is most of wealth in property comes through appreciation. And appreciation builds and is cumulative, and with property, it's actually leveraged as well. Jamie, what the hell does that mean? Well, let me go through an example. Let's say there is 5% inflation or capital appreciation in property. That is on the whole value of the property, not just the cash that you've got in, right? Let me break it down. Let's say a property is worth £100,000 and then there is 5% capital appreciation in a year. Well, that is £5,000, 5% on the 100,000, right? That's £5,000 you have just increased your net value by. Is it in your pocket? No, it's in the property, right? But it's still real. Your net wealth has increased by £5,000. So, but just because it's increased by 5%, does that mean your net has increased by 5%? No, because you'll have your deposit, some fees, and I don't know, let's say the refurbishment in that property. So let's say all in, let's just make it simple and say you're 25 grand, which would represent the deposit. Okay. Now there will be others, but this is just as an example. If you've made £5,000 because of the 5% growth, how much have you made on the 25,000 that's your actual cash in? 20%, right? Because 5,000 over 25,000 is a 20% increase in your wealth. And then the next year it goes up 5%. So it's actually more than 5% because it's 5% on the 105 and so on and so on and so on and so on. This is why you might have heard property on average doubles in value every 10 years. Now this is one of the most important parts for me because I will not buy, the yield can be crazy good, but if it's not in a high demand area or a seller's market area, then I personally wouldn't purchase that and I wouldn't put my APG investors onto it unless it's in there. But how do you actually know this? Well, what you could do is spend hours doing research. You can track all the government metrics. You can look back over the last 10 years, jump on Zoopla and do it. Probably takes you about half a day to analyze it. Or you can do what I do, use property data for this, and it's all there in one place. So you can find this, but this is just the one hub where everything is extrapolated into one place. So let's jump in now. I'll show you how I utilize this and how you can quickly select the right areas to make sure you're buying the best properties in the best area, maximizing your chances of making as much money as possible through property. So as you can see, there's so much more to property data than just the research. It actually helps you source, evaluate, and do that. And a lot of people have been asking me to do property specifically on this, so I'll break that down in further videos. But for now, sticking with the research, how do you actually understand the growth in the area? Now, I've specifically done mine to South Leeds, but I've also got small little pockets so I can understand the true growth, and it really simplifies it in this. So you can change the data source on this, so you can go as many as you want. You can download this as a PDF. I'll show you that in a moment, but you can break that down, but also it shows you the demographic growth over that. So in this particular area, over a 5-year period, it's had 26% growth. Okay, and see the trend in where this is going. So August 17, it measures it August to August because that's the month that I'm filming this, 5.8% returns. That's an increase in your property value from average 124 to 132, then 130 to 141, that's 7%. Then you had August 2019, and I don't know if you remember what was happening in the market, but that year had a bit of a hit, but it still increased by 1% from 141 to 142, 700, so still 1,500 increase. And then it's really started to break through, so this is a really good indication. In August 2020, it had 3.2%, and then 20 to 21, 6.6% growth. That is insane. Bear in mind, most people are getting 0. naff all in the bank account right now, not including the rents, not including the rental increases. Just on capital growth alone, there has been a 6.6%. In fact, in the last 365 days in this area, it's had a 7% increase. Remember that you can nearly times that by 4 to get your actual increase on your money. That means myself and my investors, leveraged at 75% loan to value, give or take some costs, on top of our rental, on top of our profits and rental increases, we have made 4 times that, which is 28% increase on our net wealth just by owning the asset. How insane is that? And imagine the power of actually being able to present this to your investors in the right way. So hopefully by now this has absolutely blown your mind, but that is exactly how I utilize this in order to understand the best ways of analysis and using those metrics to pick the right properties and get the best outcome for myself and my investors. So hopefully you got massive value from this video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button and of course subscribe to the channel if you want to find out more about property investment growth tips and tricks and how to make most money whilst building your portfolio. By now a lot of you will be asking, great, I definitely want to use property data. Well, as I said, they were sponsoring this video, so thank you so much for making that happen. And of course guys, if you want to get property data, I'm going to put a link below. It is an affiliate link, so if you sign up and get this, I'll make a couple of quid every now and then, full transparency there, but you can actually get a 14-day free trial, I believe. So if you go on that link, check it out, jump on there, start with the lowest paid plan and then build it up as you need it. I promise you it will be an absolute game changer. So hope you got massive value. Click the link below to get property data and let me know what you think of it in the comments, because I'd love to get your feedback and how it's changing your property investment journey.